Don't follow the crowd, just follow the truth. Don't bend to the voices that try to confuse. Walk the path that Hashem has shown, even if it means you're standing alone. Like Noah in the flood, when the wind turned away, or Abraham breaking idols to show the true way. Like nations standing firm, facing Pharaoh's throne. We follow the Torah, no matter who's in our path. They laugh, they mock, they try to destroy, but they stood their ground with faith and with joy. What people think doesn't matter at all, just what Hashem sees when we stand tall. There's no greatness in a mainstream lie when they choose comfort and let Torah die. Greatness is standing for what's right and true, even when the world turns against you. If we fall, we rise and try once more. It's the struggle that brings us closer to the core. I don't care for desires that fade away. I care what Hashem thinks
If you want to hear the music, you can hear it on Shuba Music.
They'll call you extreme, they'll call you a fool, but Hashem's wisdom is the only real rule. I'll speak the truth, no matter the cost. Even if friends leaving all seems lost. Most won't make it, but that's okay. We're not here to please, just to obey. They chase empty dreams and pleasures they crave, but true greatness lies in the mitzvahs we say. When they say give up, it's too much to bear, I'll remember no Yah who didn't despair. When they say give in, don't fight for this cause, I'll stand like Moshe with Hashem's holy law. There's no greatness in a mainstream lie when they choose comfort and let Torah die. Greatness is standing for what's right and true, even when the world turns against you. If we fall, we rise and try once more. It's the struggle that brings us closer to the core. I don't care for desires that fade away. I care what Hashem thinks every. So when it's dark and you're feeling small, and the whole world saying you're bound to fall, remember the giants who stood in the fire, and let Hashem's will be your only desire. There's no greatness in a mainstream lie when they choose comfort and let Torah die. Greatness is standing for what's right and true, even when the world turns against you. If we fall, we rise and try once more. It's the struggle that brings us closer to the core. I don't care for desires that fade away. I care what Hashem thinks every day. Be like me, I cover how I should have made who's constant for the truth, even if you stand alone and small. Greatness is found in Hashem's commands, not in the praises of fools, but in His holy hands. Get up again, keep pushing through. Greatness is living the Torah life true every day.
I don't have to block you, Mr. Palestine. God blocks you.
Every day.
בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים, שבוע טוב, שבוע מבורך. We're back here on our Sunday night news series, the foundation of Judaism, the foundation of the Torah, the foundation of everything we need to believe in order for us to understand pretty much what's the purpose of life. So the Chovot HaLevavot, written nearly 1,000 years ago, already started us last week, which we'll continue building upon, and each week, Be'ezrat Hashem, will continue building upon. And tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabba for Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Elad ben Doris, and all of Am Yisrael, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Joah, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahites that continue to support, help us with all the amazing things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem, at the organization, whether it's by them learning and sharing our lectures, or it's by donating their time, their efforts, skill set, All of it is very, very much appreciated. Anyone that wants to donate and join can go to be'ezrathashem.org. You can donate over there. If you want to get yourself one of these new amazing little kiruv boxes that has our featured movies in there, you can get a volume discount on the store at be'ezrathashem.org. And if you get 10 or more, you get a volume discount. If you just want to get one for yourself, be our guest. So with that, Rabotai, we're going to get started because there's simply a lot to learn. Last week, the premiere of this series taught us about the real one God. What does it really mean? The truly one, the real one. And we understood from last week that unlike anything else in creation that could easily be replaced, is made up of many pieces. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, our God, our one and only God, the only God, is one. The past, the present, the future, his thoughts, his deeds, all of it is one. And this was the beginning of understanding where we're going to right now, because right now we're going into something a little bit more personal, which is us, the hierarchy of creation. In so many words, what makes you so special? Are you better than an animal? Are all people equal? These are some of the questions that continue to come up throughout history. And the Chovot HaLevavot, Rabbeinu Bachye, has the answers about the hierarchy of creation. Once you hear it, you'll discover a whole lot more about yourself and what your purpose in the world is. It's deep, it's profound, and it's simply going to rewire your mind to be in line with what Hashem has decreed for you. So the Chovot HaLevavot, in the introduction, we're still in the second paragraph, tells us something that, if you look at it deeply, each and every word is a priceless diamond. And he says as follows: the greatest good which the Creator has given man, having him endowed him with sophisticated faculties of perception and intelligence, is wisdom. Wisdom is the life of man's spirit and the light of his intellect. It leads him to the will of God and saves him from his wrath in both this world and the next. And he gives several verses which we'll get into later on in the lecture. So to start off, the Chovot HaLevavot is telling us this gift that separates man from animal is not just a gift, it's not just good, it's the greatest good. There's simply nothing else that could ever be better than what he gave us. Now, of course, many people do not understand how to appreciate good. In fact, in one of our many lectures over the years, we said that one of the reasons why you'll see that in Parashat Kitavo, Parashat Bechukotai, or pretty much the vast majority of the Torah, you'll see many more curses and punishments and decrees that are harsh than you will see blessings. And the Rambam writes that's because people simply do not understand blessings. So putting them in the Torah, all of the details of the blessings, would simply be a waste of space, because the average person doesn't understand more than just the simple blessings of this world: money, beauty, having children, all of the things that people want. In so many words, what God is telling us in the Torah is that we really don't understand what good is. But here the Chovot HaLevavot is telling us the greatest good is that he gave us wisdom. This is what separates us from the rest of creation. Now, if you look at the world today, the love for animals has crossed all boundaries of history. People, in some cases, like animals more than they like people. In fact, they see that there is sometimes no difference between them. But what really separates you from an animal? What separates a person from an animal? The Chavot HaLevavot is telling us the first thing that you have to understand is that there's a significant difference between you and an animal. And that is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you something that's called wisdom. Now, of course, there's the lowest level of wisdom that separates man from animal, and then it can be built on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue giving it to you. And one thing that's found in man that's not going to be found in any other creature in the world is this thing called wisdom, or in Hebrew it's called dat. Now the Chachamim say that this wisdom, this neshama that we have is found in the brain. But of course, if you open up a human brain, for dead body, or people do surgeries, they're not going to find anything physical. This is something purely spiritual. But when people hear different scientists and people, zoologists and all types of animal experts talk about animals, you would swear they're talking about people. Say, oh yeah, this whale has the intellect of a 10-year-old child. This monkey has the intellect of a 6-year-old child. And all types of equivalents. And with time, many of those same people started liking those animals more than children, more than people. But that's because there's something missing in them. Because this wisdom that the Chavot HaLevavot is talking about, this greatest good, is simply a gift from Hashem that without it, there is no difference between a human being and a monkey or anything else. Now, if you go to the atheists of the world that believe that they came from some monkey and ask them for explanations of their beliefs, they certainly have a lot of opinions about our beliefs, but if you question their beliefs, why do you think you came from a monkey? They'll tell you, oh, because we have similar genes and the DNA and all types of other... Okay, fine. We have a nose and the camel has a nose. Does that mean we came from camels? Anyway, can you explain to me why, if you came from a monkey and the monkey doesn't stand up straight, the monkey crouches over, how come you stand? Say, well, it's through the millions and zillions of years. There's also the evolution where the penguin was involved too. Okay? Now the penguin nor the monkey speak. So when did that come about? When did the first monkey start talking? Well, no, through the billions and the billions and the trillions of years, the parrot got involved. Okay? So you have a parrot, you have a penguin, you have a monkey, and I'm sure a few others. That makes it pretty difficult for you to go to the zoo because you have to visit every part of your members of the family. Now, the truth is that if you compare the smartest of animals, pick one, whether they say it's the crow or the whale or the dolphin or the dog or whatever it is, you'll understand very quickly that there's a very, very big difference between them and an animal, them and a human being. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the inanimate, things like rocks, sand, plants, animals, and the speaking man. And even above that, there's an additional creation, which is the Jew that learns Torah. Not just any Jew. The Jew that learns Torah is very different than the rest of creation. A Jew that abandons the Torah becomes the worst part of creation, even worse than the animal. This is, in many Sfarim, one of them being Michtav Me'Eliyahu. by Rav Dessler alav hashalom. Now, interestingly, when you look at the plant sucking the life out of the inanimate, no part of the scientific world has ever said that the plant feels bad for taking its nourishment from the ground. And if you see an animal eat a plant, you're never going to see an animal be apologetic about the fact that it just destroyed the life of a whole family of plants. And in fact, most normal people that eat meat, they use it for clothing, they use it for all types of cars and other furniture. Generally speaking, they don't walk around embarrassed when they see a bunch of cows and sheep and all types of other animals they use for their furniture and their living. Because everyone understands that the purpose of creation is man. He's the pillar of creation. There was a recent story that came out where there was a farm of crocodiles that grew and outgrew its need, where it got to a point of 260 dangerous crocodiles that served their purpose, and there was no longer a purpose for them, so they decided to kill all of them. Use them for different things. Of course, the animal rights groups screamed foul. How can you do this? You're killing these innocent crocodiles. You should ship them all over the world. It would cost millions of dollars to do such a thing. That's your responsibility. Yeah, but to win millions of dollars, you could help people. But this doesn't matter to the animals' rights groups because they see literally virtually no difference between them and the animals in some cases. In some cases, they even see the animals as superior to people. Now, if you look at the animals themselves and how they behave, though, you'll see that the animals will always recognize at some point or another, at the moment of truth, that they are different from their masters. Whether it's the whale, the killer whales that they use for entertainment in zoos and all types of places like that, that sometimes turn on their masters. I think there was a recent story about that, where a killer whale literally killed the person that trained it its whole life. Or the tigers that famously killed almost killed one of the two famous magicians years ago. Or the countless stories that come out in the media of how a dog turns on its owner. Either the owner or the owner's kids. So you see that the animals, they don't have wisdom. They weren't gifted this wisdom that the Creator gave man, but yet their instinct tells them at some point or another they are different from their masters. Now if we look at the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, in page 54, or 58, 58a, one of the sages by the name of Ben Zoma saw a bunch of Jews standing on a step of the Temple Mount. And he said the blessing. Blessed are you, Hashem, the sage of the secrets. And he also said the blessing of blessed are you, Hashem, who created all of these to serve me. Meaning he saw a bunch of people, and he says, all of this, Jews, Gentiles, everybody here, it's for my purpose. It's for me. How come? Why was he conceited, arrogant? No. He said, look how much effort Adam HaRishon, the first man, had to make until he found bread to eat. He plowed, he sowed, he reaped, he gathered the stalks together and threshed the stalks. He winnowed the chaff from the grain. He selected the other waste from the grain, and then he ground the grain into flour, and he sifted the flour, and he kneaded the flour and the dough, and he baked the dough, and afterwards he ate the bread. But I, Ben Zoma, I rise early in the morning, and I find all of these labors already prepared for me. I don't have to farm, I don't have to winnow, I don't have to do any of this. I can just go to the store and get some bread. And even more so, look how many exertions the first man made until he found a garment to wear. He sheared the wool, he cleaned it, he disentangled it, he spun it into threads, he wove the threads, and afterwards he found a garment to wear. But I rise early in the morning, and I find that all of these labors were already prepared for me. Indeed, the members of all the nations diligently come to the entrance of my house, and I rise early in the morning and I find all of them before me. So here we see that one of the great sages of Am Yisrael is telling us all of what you see in the world is for the sake of the Jew that learns Torah. Now, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in such a way that everyone has to have an incentive to do what they do. So you have commerce, you have the monetary system, you have people having the desire to gain power, to gain wealth. So they come up with different clever ideas of what to sell, what to create. And each guy that sells is not satisfied with what he has, so he creates something else and he sells something else. And before you know it, he builds a company and he gives people jobs. And those people that he gave jobs to, some of them stay with him, some of them leave and start their own companies. And these companies create things, whether it's shirts and pants and cars and houses and all types of technology that we're using as we speak. All of the things that you see in the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this system in order for the Jew that's serving him to be able to serve him with comfort and not having to exert all of his efforts doing the same thing to feed himself. Now, of course, everybody has to do something to make a living, but he doesn't have to do everything. He has to have to farm for himself, doesn't have to, always cook for himself, doesn't have to build for himself, doesn't have to sew for himself. Hashem created a system in the world that each person has an incentive to do different things, to motivate him, to build computers, to motivate him and inspire him, to create new technology, to make things more efficient, to inspire him to be the best, to inspire him to employ more people, to inspire him to do more. And all of this, says the Gemara, was for the Jew that's learning Torah. Why? Why is it for the Jew that's learning Torah? Because as the Chovot HaLevavot is trying to explain to us, this greatest good that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave man is called wisdom. And with this wisdom, you are now going to have the tools to do the will of Hashem. So yes, while Mr. Sony is focused on making televisions and all types of electronics, that product is going to make certain things possible in order for you to learn Torah and do the will of Hashem. So yes, he has his incentives and his motivation. But why does Hashem allow him to make so much money? Because it's worth it for Hashem to give him all of that in order for that person that's serving him to be able to do so. As the Rambam writes in the introduction to the Mishnah, his commentary on the Mishnah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu built this world in such a way that there could be a sheikh, an Arab sheikh, that decides to build a castle, a huge building in the middle of the desert. There's no neighbors, there's no roads, there's no nothing. There's no reason, economic reason to ever build it. But he decides one day to take his billions of dollars of oil money and build a tower. Now after he builds it, doesn't really see much use in it, but he's happy he built it. Why did Hashem allow this money to be wasted? Because one day, and it could literally be 400 years later, a righteous Jew could be walking in a desert and need to take a break and use something to cover himself. And he could use the side of that building to cover him and protect him from the heat. That's how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for the Jew that's learning Torah. Now, unfortunately, the average person does not have the ability to understand the significance of the greatest good, because many times they get good and they throw it away or ignore it, or they become ungrateful. And that's why the same Gemara continues and says, this same Ben Zoma that talked about how great Hashem created the world just for my sake, also taught us that there are two types of people: a good guest and a bad guest. A good guest, after he's hosted, will see, wow, look how much trouble my host took for my sake. How much meat he brought for me, how much wine he brought for me, how many rolls he brought before me, and all the trouble that he took only for my sake, meaning he's grateful for everything that's there, as if it was all done for him. But a bad guest will say, what trouble did this host take for me? I ate bread. I only ate one piece. I drank only one cup. And he had many cups. He had many breads. So all the trouble that this host took, he did it for himself, for his wife, for his kids, for his other guests. It wasn't for me. Meaning the difference between the good guest and the bad guest is simply a perspective, where the good guest sees that everything that's available was all done for him. This is not arrogance. This is gratitude. All of the creation, whether it's the big corporations, the small corporations, the local deli or the local laundromat, the beautiful houses and with the views or the small cheap house, whatever it is, all of it was done for me. It's for my benefit. My Creator did it for me. But the bad guest, the ungrateful person, says what? He created the world anyway. What big deal was it for him to just add another person? What big deal was it? What, did I ask him to come to the world? Like the famous heretic Manish always says, I didn't ask to come to the world. That's a bad guest. That's an ungrateful person. And the Chavot HaLevavot is trying to tell us this wisdom is the difference between you and the animal. Because while the animal does not have the capability of truly showing gratitude to the point where they're going to fulfill the will of the Creator by learning Torah, by doing mitzvot, by doing things beyond its instincts, you can. And really, when it comes down to it, the Chavot HaLevavot is telling us this greatest good that's called wisdom is the greatest good only when you understand what wisdom is. And what is this wisdom? Wisdom is the life of man's spirit and the light of his intellect because it leads him to the will of God. Meaning, the whole purpose of this wisdom is not to make you the best investor, the best builder, the smartest mathematician. No. It's in order for you to be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, if you look at history, recent history even, you'll see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Jews differently than the rest of the people in the world. It's not a conspiracy, it's simply a fact. Just if you look at finance, something that I've spent many years of my life being involved in and researching and so on, you look at what the anti-Semites love to talk about. Jewish people's money, Jewish people's success. What they don't tell you is that these very same Jewish people that succeeded also built the same economic system that they rely on. Say what you may about people like Michael Milken, the reality is the only reason why the bond market is what it is today is because of him. He was a pioneer in the bond market in the 1980s, got caught after another investor, a Jewish investor called Ivan Boesky, took both of them down for insider trading. But before all of this happened, Michael Milken was a world-renowned investor that literally reshaped the bond market to the point where today everyone spends a lot of their time looking into the stock market, but anyone that's a real investor knows that the stock market is like a little baby next to the bond market. That's where the real money is. People like Ron Perlman, Steve Schwartzman, Jim Simmons, the best hedge fund manager of all time by far. Evil people like George Soros, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro. An evil person, but yet successful investor. Sanford Weill, Sandy Weill was the CEO of Citigroup. These people reshaped not just their industry, but the world. Now, of course, in the technological world, you see the Zuckerbergs, the Google guys, Larry Page, and you see also, of course, now the one that's on the top of the news constantly in recent days, Larry Ellison from Oracle. I mean, he's been a billionaire for many years, but now he's become, he's on the top again. Sergey Brin from Google, the lefty liberal Michael Bloomberg, Michael Dell, the Adelson family from, Las Vegas, the hotels. Literally, if you look at a list of billionaire investors that are Jewish, the list continues to grow. If you look at successful investors that are Jews, the list doesn't end. Whether it's Mayer Rothschild, the righteous Jew that started an entire lineage of success, even though his descendants did not follow the way of Hashem, and many of them went against Hashem, he was a righteous Jew. Many of the things that the Jews did to make their money, while people like to criticize they succeeded, they did this. In reality, Jews saved America in the Civil War by lending it money. Jews saved England. Jews saved France. Jews saved literally almost every single country throughout history. Unfortunately, Jews even saved the church, the Vatican. This special talent or knack for success, innovation in the scientific world, in the financial world, also saved the world, whether it be World War II, where Oppenheimer and Einstein and a few other Jewish scientists pretty much ended the war with the atomic bomb, which, argue as you may, if it wasn't for that, the war would have been much worse. Instead of 6 million Jews dying, it would have been all of them. Or it saved the economic crisis. Bernanke is an Orthodox religious Jew that learns Torah every day. He saved the economy in 2008. Why is there such a common denominator where when you look at success throughout all of history, you'll find a Jewish face? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, while he created the inanimate, the plants, the animals, and the speaking man, he also created the Jew. And the Jew has an elevated neshama that has capabilities to acquire a higher level of wisdom because he has a higher level of responsibility to do the will of Hashem. Unfortunately, when that Jew, as I've said before, and I've said it throughout all of the years, when that Jew does the will of Hashem, he is the pillar of creation. All of it is for him. When that Jew is righteous, when that Jew learns Torah, everything in creation is created for him. When that Jew does not do what Hashem says, he may still stay successful in technology, in finance, in different things. But unfortunately, many times their personal behavior becomes some of the worst in creation. Prime example, George Soros, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, hates his own people and everybody else included. And there's unfortunately others like him. So why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do this? Because at the end of it all, if there was no wisdom, if there was no way for us to know how to fulfill the will of Hashem, nothing would separate us from the animals. Who told you that you're allowed to go kill 260 alligators? Who told you that you're allowed to wear a leather belt? Who told you that you're allowed to eat steak? What makes you better than the cow? What makes you better than the alligator? Or any other animal for that matter? Anyone that puts their mind to it can clearly understand that certainly the Creator did not create this world with the animals as the pillar of creation, because he clearly invested much more into man than he did the animals, because animals depend on man. Now, of course, you could say, no, they live fine in the wild. Yes, they live fine in the wild until man needs it. And then they are subjected to man's decision of what to do with their lives, whether to cook them for food or to make them into clothing or make them into zoo animals or whatever it is. And it's not because man is stronger than an animal that the animal is pretty much at his mercy, but rather because man all men, have greater wisdom than the animals that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled into man. A bear is much stronger than you and faster. A lion, a tiger, a zebra, all of these different animals are stronger and faster than man. But yet, the wisdom of man allows them to conquer and submit the animals at their will. Because all of those creations were created for the sake of man. Now, when a person understands that all of this is for the sake of serving Hashem, doing the will of Hashem, you're now going to understand what is the will of Hashem. Why is this so good then? Okay, I understand, do mitzvot, learn Torah. But like I said before, the reason why the Torah does not give details of all of the blessings that Hashem bestowed upon us is because people do not understand blessings. If I told you that if you're a righteous person, you'll go to heaven and you'll be surrounded by Torah sages learning Torah and enjoying the heavenly Shekhinah, no person can understand. What does that mean? I'll enjoy the Shekhinah. What is it, a suntan? What is it, like good weather? What do I eat? When do I wake up? Do I get vacation? That's what people think about because they live in a world, in a physical world. Now, of course, anybody that is familiar with near-death experiences or read about it in the holy books knows that when a person goes to the next world, even if it's for a moment because it's a near-death experience and then they come back to life, the one common denominator all people say is that the moment they understand what the real world is, this life, however long you lived in it, whether it's 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, is but a dream. It's like, you know how you go to sleep, you have a dream, and the dream feels real, and you feel like you're some type of like hero, and you're flying, or you're saving somebody, or somebody's chasing you, and it feels real. But then you wake up, and it's not more than a couple of moments later where you realize, oh, it's just a dream. And if you're a relatively normal person, that's it. That's where it ends. It's not going to affect the rest of your day. Because it's just a dream. You woke up to real life. Our Chachamim tell us that this whole world that we live in, all the effort that you put into waking up early in the morning and going to work, and of course, hopefully after you prayed, and making food and paying for the food and paying for the bills and making sure your kids get the right education and making sure your kids have everything to eat and drink and clothes and finding the spouse and that's the right one for you, and hopefully you're the right one for her, and all of the effort that people put into their life to build their little empires or big empires. The moment a person leaves this world, they realize it was all the equivalent of a dream. It's like it was nothing. But the acts they did, every single one of them, during this momentary life of 70 years, will be analyzed with a fine-tooth comb. Every single thing will be analyzed. Every single thing will be judged. Every single thing will either be rewarded or punished for. So while the average person cannot understand the blessings and the reward they will get for the good, because the only thing we can consider good is things that we have seen or have heard of, that are in the physical world. A bigger house, a nicer and newer car, a more expensive watch, a more beautiful wife or husband, righteous kids, things that are physical, things that are material. Because that's what people know. So, all of that is literally inconsequential in the real world. Beauty of this world is not even the ugliness of the next world. In fact, the holy books talk about how even the animals of this world look almost nothing like they do in the real world. They exist in the real world, but this is not even a good copy of it. Because all of the animals of this world, everything in this world exists in the real world. But they're all majestic. They're all flying with wings and absolute beauty and holiness. Yes, even the pig. All of the things that exist in this world are not even considered ugly in the next world. They're literally inconsequential and nothing. So the moment a person gets a glimpse of the real world, this is but a dream. But unfortunately for some people, that dream has consequences, unlike the dream you had in this life. So while you may not understand this reward and this microcosm of an explanation of it, or parts of it that I just gave you, you will understand what the Chovot HaLevavot is saying. Why is this the greatest good? This wisdom that allows you, that leads you to the will of God, because it saves him from his wrath in both this world and the next. He's not saying this wisdom will lead you to great rewards. He's not saying this wisdom will lead you for, no, he's telling you, simple. You're not going to understand the reward even if I give you the 5,000 pages of explanations about it. You simply do not have the tools. But you do understand wrath. You do understand punishment. Why people get sick, people die, people lose everything, people get divorced, people have troubles. There's simply no person on earth that does not have trials and tribulations in their life on a regular basis. Some have physical pain, emotional pain. Some people have relationship issues. Some people have no relationships. They feel alone in the world. Some people looking to have kids one day. Some people can't wait to get rid of their kids because their kids have turned them into an enemy. Like one person that contacted me asking for help to help them with the kid that's now suing them for their own money, that literally they want the inheritance before the parent dies. All types of insane situations, which literally show how real the Gemara was when it said that the reason why the human body becomes tameh as soon as a person dies is because now you can't just touch it because you'll become tameh. Now, why does that matter? The sages explain. If it wasn't for that tumah, wicked kids, wicked children that are after the money of the parents, literally they wanted the parents to die because they wanted their money, will fight with each other so much over the money that eventually they'll fight over the skin of the parents so they can make it into carpets and rugs and all types of decorations. Unfortunately, today, you see it. You see how people fight over everything, especially when it comes to inheritance. So now, bad, punishment, difficulties, everyone understands. And therefore, the Chovot HaLevavot says, this greatest good, called wisdom, is easy even for you to understand, regardless of your level, regardless of whether you've been learning Torah your entire life or you've just been introduced to it today. This greatest wisdom is something you can comprehend. Why? Because if you capitalize on this wisdom, it will lead you to the will of God and will save you from his wrath, both in this world and the next. Now, of course, there are always going to be people that say, well, where's the wrath mentioned in the Torah? Where is it mentioned in my daily life? We have holidays coming up. Be'ezrat Hashem, in about a month. We also have Rosh Chodesh coming up. In about a week and a half. Every Jew that goes to Beit Knesset, or prays, knows that the Hallel is not just something that you say during your Pesach Seder on a table with the wife and kids and guests, but the Hallel is something you say every month on Rosh Chodesh, every Jewish holiday. You say the Hallel. Now, if you don't learn Torah, then you'll translate the Torah like the Goyim do, which is whatever it literally means is what you'll interpret it as. For example, says the Gemara in Maseret Pesachim, page 118a. Hodu leHashem ki tov. Give thanks to Hashem, for He is good. This is in Tehillim. This is Tehillim 136. And everyone knows this. Hodu leHashem ki tov. In fact, some people say, anytime something good happens to them, they say, Hodu leHashem ki tov. Give thanks to Hashem, for He is good. Sounds great. You're grateful. What's wrong with being grateful? Nothing is wrong with being grateful. What's wrong is, that was not the meaning of David HaMelech. Says the Gemara, Rabotai Yekarim, listen good, because if you don't learn Torah, you'll never know this. David HaMelech went to the thought of the Creator when he wrote the Tehillim. All of it was written with Ruach HaKodesh. And Rav Chisda says, what is the meaning of what David is saying? Hodu leHashem ki tov, give thanks to Hashem, for He is good. What's the meaning behind it? It means, give thanks to Hashem, for He collects a person's debts from the latter's material good fortune in lieu of imposing a physical punishment. Meaning that Hashem punishes the rich man by taking his ox, and a pauper by taking his lamb, and an orphan by taking his egg, and a widow by taking her hen. What do you mean? What? I thought you were saying thank you. So what are you talking about Hashem taking? He says, no, you're not understanding. What David HaMelech is telling us here, why are we saying Hodu leHashem ki tov? Because surely you weren't such a good boy the whole year. Needless to say, your whole life. But Hashem still gave you money. Right? Sometimes gave you a lot of money. And then you lost money. All of a sudden, you made a bad investment. For that loss of investment, says David HaMelech, say Hodu leHashem ki tov, thank you Hashem for taking the money. Why? Because the reality is, for me violating Shabbat, for me being intermarried, for me stealing, for me cheating, for me doing this, for me going against you even for one of those things, you are supposed to simply take away my life. But instead, you took the money. And not only that, you're so good, Hashem, that you gave me the money just so you can take it back. You gave me the money, you gave me the fortune, you gave me the company, you gave me what I thought is good, but in reality, I didn't understand how good it is because it's going to save my life. It's like Hashem destroyed the Bet HaMikdash in order to save Am Yisrael. That's why David HaMelech says, Hodu LaHashem ki tov. Thank you, Hashem, that you gave me the ox and made me rich just so you can take the ox away instead of taking my life. You gave me the lamb just so you can take it away instead of taking my life. Rabotai Karim, the depth of the wisdom of the Torah is literally endless. When you see people that go and serve Hashem with all of their strength, you start recognizing that there is a difference between them and the rest of mankind. While the average person thinks that the world is theirs in order to serve them, in order for them to rule over it, with no consideration or gratitude for the one that gave them everything. Whereas the one that serves Hashem day and night, he realizes that not only was Hashem's enormous goodness was to put him in this world that's full of things to enable him to serve Hashem, but even the gifts that he gives him, the wealth, the different things, that's also to enable him to serve Hashem, even when he doesn't do things perfectly. So at least HaKadosh Baruch Hu can take something from you that he gave you instead of taking you from that something. You see that there's a difference in ideology to the complete extreme. While one person lives for money, the other one understands that money is simply a tool Hashem gave him in order to serve Hashem with it. While one is changed by money, the other one simply looks at money no different than a hammer. It's a tool that should be used whenever needed. Because one sees the world as their only world. While the one that's a Torah scholar, one that's serving Hashem day and night, understands that this world is but a corridor to the real world. It's a dream. It's simply a place for you to do some work so you can have a good, real life. And therefore, says the Chovot HaLevavot, dear man, understand this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the greatest good, which is a wisdom. This wisdom can help you serve Hashem and do His will. And since you do not understand how to capitalize on His wisdom yet, I'll explain to you in simple form. In so many words, this wisdom is the only way for you to understand how to avoid His wrath. How to get to a point where instead of Him taking the money from you, He'll simply take you away from the money. How you realize that this temporary world is not only not forever, but the horrible real world that you've ignored is forever. And the Chovot HaLevavot brings us some verses that we can learn from. He first starts with Shlomo HaMelech. He says, for it is God who grants wisdom. From His mouth comes knowledge and insight. Shlomo HaMelech in Proverbs chapter 2 verse 6 tells us what is the value of this wisdom. And he says, if you seek it as if it were silver, if you search for it as if it were hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of Hashem. And discover the knowledge of God. So first, Shlomo HaMelech tells us that if you toil to understand where your little point is in the world, but not just treat it as if somebody has to give it to you on a silver platter, but rather recognize the Creator, recognize the creation, recognize how much good Hashem provided to you in this world, where you don't have to toil for every little thing. You don't have to make your own clothes. You don't have to make your own food all the time. You don't have to go hunt. You don't have to do all the things that the previous generations had to do. Everything is given to you. You'll have the fear of Hashem. Why? Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. The beginning of wisdom is fear of Hashem. Recognizing that the Creator runs the world and there's no way that the world came from nothing, or that the evolutionists are even remotely right. That will get you to fear Hashem. At least to the point where the Sfat Emet says, don't just perform the mitzvot, treasure them. Because when you do something good in accordance to the Torah, you should view it as if you have a treasure. You just completed another perek in the Mishnah, another Masechet, another Parashat Shavua, another time you put on tefillin, another time you gave tzedakah. View it as you have acquired yourself a treasure. Because you have improved and enhanced your connection to Hashem. Because as the Radak says on this verse, incline your heart to understand means make a strong effort to understand, for Hashem rewards or punishes not only for the deed itself, but also for the effort that went into it. Meaning, you should have fear of Hashem because you understand that He created everything and He's still creating now. And everything that you do will either be rewarded or punished for. And not just the end result, but even the actual action. You tried making a sin, you'll be punished for making that. And therefore, says Shlomo HaMelech, for Hashem grants wisdom, from His mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He secures the eternal Torah for the upright, where the ultimate chokhmah that you're looking for is the primary benefit from your fear of God. As the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says in page 31b, that if a person had everything but he did not fear God, it's as if he has nothing. And the Gemara in Masechet Nida, page 72b, says that when the people of Alexandria came to Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah and asked him, what should a person do in order to acquire this chokhmah, this wisdom? And he told them, learn more Torah. And they said, listen, we did that, but we didn't succeed becoming Talmidei Chachamim. He said, then go ask the source of chokhmah. Go ask Hashem. He's the source. Meaning that fear of God will get you the basics, where you understand God is in charge of everything. There's reward, there's punishment. But if you want more, not only toil in Torah, but also ask the source of all wisdom. That's what Shlomo HaMelech is telling us here. Hashem grants wisdom. It's not something that just because you have a higher IQ, you're going to have a higher understanding of Torah. From His mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Hashem simply has to decree that you will understand more Torah. And He gives it, He secures the eternal Torah to the righteous, to the upright. Now, Rabbi Yecheskel Abramsky wrote the Sefer Chazon Yecheskel. And he says, every day we do the morning blessings. And one of the morning blessings the Jewish people do is we thank Hashem that He gives the Torah to Am Yisrael, Amelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael, that He teaches Torah to Am Yisrael. And he said one time what I would do was I would pray to Hashem when I would say, you're the one that's teaching Am Yisrael Torah. So Hashem, if someone has a good rabbi, then they're bound to be a good student. If the rabbi is good, he teaches good, then the student will be good. So you be my rabbi. I want to learn Torah from you because I want to be a really good student. I want to be a good servant. In so many words, what we say every day in Amidah, a part of the prayer that is often not appreciated enough. At the end of Amidah, 3 times a day, we say this follows. Elohai, netzol leshoni mira. My God, guard my tongue from evil. V'siftotai medaber mirma. And my lips from speaking deceitfully. Ulimkar elai, nafshi tidom. And those that curse me, let my soul be silent. V'nafshi ke'afar, lekol tieh. And let my soul be like dust to everyone. Meaning you're humbling yourself. Did you humble yourself after the prayer when somebody cut you off in traffic? But you just said it, so are you a liar or you just forgot? But what's the whole point? What's the whole point for all of it? Petach libi betoratecha. Open my heart to your Torah. V'achem mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. And after your commandments, let my soul pursue it. In so many words, Rabotai, every day, the Jewish neshama knows what to do. The Jewish sages gave us a siddur, a structured prayer, just in case the body forgot what the soul wants. And they knew all of the keys to all of the gates of heaven that are open at specific times and what words were necessary in order to open those gates. But if the Jew does not learn Torah, then he is simply looking forward to finishing the prayer, forgetting the last few words that he is saying to Hashem of what he wants as a result of all of this prayer. In so many words, your neshama is supposed to be singing it. Elohai, netzor leshoni mira, v'siftotai, medaber mirma, umkal elai, נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר, לכל תהיה, פתח ליבי בתורתך, ואחרי מצוותיך, תרדוף נפשי, וכל הקמים עליי לרעה, מהרה אפר עצתם, וקלקל מחשבותם. In so many words, at the end of every Amidah, a person is giving a Kadosh Baruch Hu their last plea. After I prayed, I did the Shema Yisrael, I did everything. What do I want from all of this? What is the total result? Is it more money, more houses, more stuff? No. No. P'tach libi b'toratecha, open my soul, open it for Torah. Why? That's the wisdom. That's the wisdom. That's all I want. That's the wisdom that separates me from being an animal. That's what distinguishes me from being some terrorist. That's what distinguishes me from being some cow. That's what distinguishes me from being some whale. That's the difference. P'tach libi b'toratecha. Open my soul for your Torah. That's the wisdom. That's all I want. But if a person finishes their prayer looking at their watch, looking forward to the Chazan already doing the Chazarat HaShatz to finish quickly so you can go to work, so you can go home, so you can go eat, so you can go take a shower, so you go play baseball, so you go do this. You missed the whole point. You missed the whole point. The closer a person's mind is to the Torah, the more wisdom they will acquire, as a Kadosh Baruch Hu gives wisdom to those that are wise. The further they are from the Torah, not only do they not acquire more wisdom, but in fact, they become more similar to the animals that they're supposed to be different from, because now they don't have the tools to control the animal instincts within them. An animal works off of instinct. If he's hungry, he chases the zebra. He doesn't care that the zebra has a family, has kids, has a whole lineage of important zebras. No, he's hungry. He wants to eat the zebra. The first one that goes into his mouth wins or loses. The great white shark does not think about what does the father of the seal think about me eating his son. No, he's hungry. If he catches that little seal, that's it. He doesn't even do a blessing. No Birkat HaMazon, no Shakon Yamidvaro, no even Motzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Yam, that's all he said, it's finished. He'll fly up into the air out of the water just to catch that seal. That's his instinct. And the same goes for every other animal. In fact, many of those people that have made their animals more important in their lives than people are discovering that those animals don't necessarily feel the same about them. There's a new thing going on where it's, I don't know if it's all over the world, but I know it's in a couple of places where people are saying, test your dog. What is test your dog? People are testing to see what their dog is going to do if they put next to the dog their favorite food, whatever that food is, and then while the dog is eating the food, a burglar comes into the house. Is the dog that they invested so much into, raising him and bathing him and feeding him, is the dog going to protect the house? Is the dog going to protect the people? Every one of the dogs failed. In fact, in one case, the dog is recorded playing with the burglar. Apparently, this burglar had a knack for dogs. He started playing as he has the mask on. He starts playing with the dog all over the house. The dog is taking him from room to room. And it's a real burglar. It's not fake burglar. He's taking him all over the house. That's it, he's done. Yeah, but what about protecting the house, protecting your owner's stuff, being a guard dog? Listen, I got meat. Yeah, but what about your owner? Yeah, I don't know. I got meat. That's a dog. That's the dog. That's the mind of a dog. That's the mind of every animal. They work off of instinct. When the philosophers tried to fight against the Torah, they chose the Rambam as the representative of Torah, Baruch Hashem. And they said to the king that they believe that there is no difference between men and animals other than the fact that men are simply more sophisticated animals. But if you train an animal, it can become no different than a man. So in so many words, a man is a trained animal. And the Rambam, of course, said, you're absolutely wrong. You could never remove the nature of an animal. You may be able to make it do tricks, but the nature, the inner nature of an animal cannot change because it does not have dat, it does not have wisdom. And of course, the philosophers wanted to impress upon the king that they can change the nature of an animal, and they want a contest. And the king said, sure, show me. It took a few months, and they came back to the kingdom with a cat. But it wasn't an ordinary cat. This cat was wearing a tuxedo, walking on two legs, and holding a dish, serving different people with this dish. Of course, everyone was impressed. He said, where's the Rambam of the Jews? So we could show him how we changed the nature of this cat. Immediately, the king summoned the Rambam. And the Rambam, of course, had to go. But before the servants of the king came to bring the Rambam there, the Rambam was learning Torah, of course. And while he was learning, a little mouse came next to him and jumped into his box of tobacco. And the Rambam quickly closed the box in order to get rid of this mouse and bring him outside without killing him. But as soon as he came to the door, the king's servants came, summoning him there. So he just put the box in his pocket and forgot about it. They brought him to the palace and showed him the new, renewed cat that really has become a human being. Look, the cat is walking on two legs, holding a dish with drinks in it, with a little tuxedo on. And everyone's impressed. Ooh, what do you have to say about that? And at that moment, of course, the Rambam understood the siyata dishmaya that he had moments before he was summoned, with the mouse being in his tobacco box. He simply reached into his pocket, opened up the tobacco box. The mouse jumped out and started running. And the moment the cat saw that mouse, quickly he abandoned ship, got out of his tuxedo, threw the dishes everywhere, and went back to being a cat that's trying to catch his prey, because that's his instinct. That's how he was created. In so many words, when a person lacks this wisdom that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him, at least the ability to acquire, the more they lack, the more they see themselves similar to the animals, where they might not view themselves as a lion or as a fish, but their behavior becomes similar. They have predatory traits. They have the mentality of kill or be killed. They have the mentality of survival of the fittest. They have the mentality of do whatever you desire, meaning follow your lust. So they don't see controlling their lust and being honest and monogamous and being loyal to their wives or husbands. They don't see that as even a possibility, especially when they're put up to the test. They don't see the possibility of them not doing everything in their power to win, even if that means destroying the enemy in the process, even though the enemy is not really an enemy, he's just simply a competitor. Because they view it as survival of the fittest. The more a person lacks this wisdom, that's the greatest gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made possible for us, the more they become similar to the animals. and little by little, worse than the animals. On the other hand, the same Torah tells us that Hashem gives wisdom to the wise. As the Chovot HaLevavot tells us, in the name of Job, chapter 32, verse 8, but truly wisdom is a spirit in man. It is the breath of the Almighty that makes him understand. This was said by Elihu, one of the friends of Job. In so many words, Elihu is telling him that after listening to Job complaining and everything about his difficulties, Elihu concluded that age and experience are not enough in order for somebody to have this godly wisdom. Because the godly spirit in man is what gives him wisdom and validates his opinions, whether he's young or old, says the Metzudot. And there's no doubt that one who has this spirit becomes wiser with age and experience, while the foolish people remain foolish even as their hair grows gray. In so many words, Elihu is telling us that this wisdom is not something that you could acquire outside of the Torah just by becoming a better mathematician or a better scientist or becoming older. You can simply be an old fool, an old man that still acts like an animal. The prophet Daniel says he gives the wise their wisdom and those with understanding their knowledge. What Daniel is saying here, which the Chovot HaLevavot is bringing, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives this gift of wisdom to people that are mentally prepared to receive it. Meaning, he's not giving this wisdom to people that are already wise, but rather people that are potentially wise. And if they're already wise, he gives them even more. And the Midrash Tanchuma, on Parashat Vayekel, and this is also something that's mentioned in the Gemara, has a story of a noble woman that comes to Rabbi Chalafta, Rabbi Yosef ben Chalafta, and asks him. It says that, Shlomo HaMelech says that Hashem gives wisdom to the wise. Shouldn't he have given it to the stupid people so they can become wise? So Rabbi Yosef ben Chalafta says to the wise noblewoman, well, let me explain it to you. If there are two people, one is poor and one is rich, and they're both asking you for a loan of $1 million, which one of them would you give the $1 million to as a loan? And the noblewoman says, of course, I would give it to the rich man. Why would you give it to the rich man? Says Rabbi Chalafta. She says, because if something goes wrong, the rich man has at least some way of paying it back. Whereas the poor man, where is he going to have the money to pay it back from? Says Rabbi Yosef ben Chalafta, your ears should hear what your mouth is saying. As the Holy One, blessed is He, is telling us, if He would have given the wisdom to stupid people, meaning people that do not value wisdom, they would sit and speak this wisdom, these words of Torah, in unclean places. They wouldn't study it. They would view it as if it's anything else. They wouldn't know what to do with it, just like the poor man doesn't know what to do with the $1 million loan. And therefore Hashem gives the wisdom to the wise, because they would use it and learn it and study it in the synagogues, in the Bet Midrash, and they would value it just like the rich man would value the $1 million loan. They already know what to do with it. In this matter, our sages explain to us that part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mercy is simply to give us this wisdom based on what vessel we've made ourselves. And the reason why there is a different capacity between one and another is because this chokhmah, this da'at, is what we already discussed. The chokhmah is, in essence, deciphering between right and wrong. And the chokhmah is the mental capacity to distinguish between good and bad, wise or foolish. And a distinction is based not only on your rationale or some logical conclusion that you have, rather, it's based on the wisdom that Hashem gave you of the Torah in order to understand what His will is. The more you know about Hashem's will, the more you emulate the ways of Hashem, the more you'll be able to use the higher levels of wisdom that He gave you. And therefore He gives wisdom to the wise. Meaning that you've acquired enough wisdom to fear God. Now He gives you further wisdom because you know what to do with it. And now you're going to know how to continue staying on that path of doing His will. But then on this, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin asks a question. If Hashem gives wisdom to the wise, where did the original wisdom come from? The original wisdom comes from what Shlomo HaMelech says. Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. The moment you fear God, automatically you have a certain level of wisdom that makes you a vessel to acquire further wisdom. Animals do not have this. Heretics not only don't have this, but heretics are ungrateful people. Because instead of valuing the wisdom that Hashem wants to give them, has given them partially, instead of valuing the good that He gave them, the world that He gave them, what do? They deny His existence. They manipulate His words. And therefore heretics are by nature ungrateful people. And conversely, those that have acquired a certain level of wisdom because they started fearing God, but they become ungrateful, they're bound to become heretics. Meaning, the heretic is in nature an ungrateful person, and even a person that has acquired some level of wisdom but becomes ungrateful is bound to become a heretic as well. Because ultimately, says the Chovot HaLevavot, we see the words of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 48, verse 17, where Hashem says, I am Hashem your God, who instructs you for your own benefit, who guides you in the way you should go. In so many words, the whole point of this wisdom is to give you clear instructions of where you go. For what? For your own benefit. Not because God needs you or you benefit God. Melamdecha le'oil. As the Radak says, God instructs you each and every day for your benefit, that you may live in peace if you obey Him and go in the way that you should follow. And the sages expand upon this and say that in the Gemara in Masechet Makot, that whatever way you want to go, Hashem will let you go in that way. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen says that means that if you wish to be righteous, you'll find yourself with a clear path to be righteous. But if you are looking for sins, Hashem is not going to stop you. And therefore, no one should assume that because he finds it easy to make sins and do wrong, that somehow God approves his deeds. That's a heretical belief. To the contrary, it means only that he's sinning because that's his desire. He really wants to sin. And Hashem is not getting in his way. So in so many words, our sages are telling us that the initial wisdom is to fear God. Further wisdom is to know how to fulfill his will. The more you want to fulfill his will, the more he will help you. For what? For your own good. And the reason why this is the greatest good is like the Chovot HaLevavot said already in the beginning, is because it will save you from his wrath. And this brings us up to a point where many people do not understand what it means, the greatest good. What's better? Someone that gives you compliments, teaches you here and there a shiur of Daf Yomi, says hello to you every day, or someone that help you do tshuva. Now you can say, listen, that person, that rabbi, or that chavruta, or that neighbor, that I see him every day, and he gives me a ride to shul, I pray with him, he's a good friend. He lent me some money, he helped me get my kids to school. He's a good guy, no problem. But if you compare that to the person that helped you do tshuva, whether it was Rabbi Reuven with his shiurim and his films, or it was somebody that gave you one of these tikkun abrit, or it was somebody that brought you to a shiur Torah, or whatever it is, the person that helped you do tshuva, you simply do not know how much you owe that person because you don't consider what was the other option. Until you saw the lectures, until you saw the shiurim, you are on the path to a guaranteed wrath of Hashem with no remorse, with no end. You had one din karet after another being collected on a weekly basis. And for each karet, all of the suffering in the world that ever existed, for every single person, will not amount to even a single karet. And you were collecting them like people collect cards and all types of silly collections. Every other day you were collecting more karet sins. Every Shabbat, more karet sins. Every relationship, more karet sins. In so many words, what the Chovot HaLevavot is saying here, this wisdom is what saves you from the wrath in both this world and the next. Which means that if you do not have a life that's in accordance with this wisdom, with knowledge of how to do the will of Hashem, that means you actually had a guarantee of receiving all of the wrath with no limitation, with no explanation, with no comprehension. So now when a person understands what is Gehenom, what is Kafar Kela, what is Chibut HaKever, what is the other option than a life without Hashem? What if I didn't do tshuva? Where would my life be? I would be like, what, one of these billionaires that has no this world or the next world. So they have money, but they have no life and no eternity and no wisdom and no purpose, that literally they do not decipher between themselves and some lion or beast in the middle of a jungle? You call that a life? Death is better than that. So a person that does not understand what is the option, what was the path that I was on before I did tshuva, before Rabbi Ephraim saved me from Gehenom, what else did I have? You literally, the more you think about it, the more you start visualizing not only the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His mercy, but how much you owe to that rabbi or person or friend or donor or whoever it is that saved you from the inevitable wrath of Hashem. The average person does not know what good is. Needless to say, they do not understand what the Chovot and Levavot is saying, the greatest good. Agdolah shebatovot, the greatest of all good. Why? Your other option was to stay on that path, continue making sins against Hashem, and determining your success on temporary monetary or material success, only to find out at the end of your life, whenever it may be, that it was all for naught. All you accumulated in your stock accounts, your real estate portfolio, your trust, and all of the material you've accumulated and toiled for your whole life, you're not even going to get to enjoy. You're going to give it to other people, whether it be your kids, or it be some foundation, or to leave some legacy that doesn't really care anything about you. They'll remove the name off the building a moment they get an opportunity to. They just simply want the money. They can prefer you, with the money, or the money without you. Either way, they just want the money. People have this diluted understanding of what they can do with money. They don't realize you can't take it with you. What does that mean, you can't take it with you? That all you're spending your energy accumulating, if you don't use it for good in this world, you'll regret ever having it. You'll regret ever having it. And when a person understands that when they were on the path that did not have this wisdom, did not have the instructions of the wisdom of Hashem, they were on a path that guaranteed them the wrath of Hashem in both this world and the next. And therefore, whoever saved them from that path is not only somebody that they owe something to. Even if they gave them everything and anything, it would never be enough. You can never repay such a person. If I could take my life and put it in a box and give it to my Rav, Rabbi Ephraim, I would, but it still wouldn't be enough. Because there's simply nothing that could ever quantify what was the other option. And that's what the average person doesn't understand. Yes, your local friend and rabbi and whoever else is nice to you and friendly to you and all that other good stuff, it's great. But nothing will ever measure of even any similarity to what you owe the person that took you off of that path of wrath. That's why the Chovot HaLevavot, after teaching us what the truly one is, what the one God is, he then teaches us what is the greatest good. Because once you understand what the greatest good is, then you can now go back and understand even further what truly one is. Once you understand what one God is, you could understand what the greatest good is. One goes with the other. But if a person does not understand what the greatest good is, certainly they will never be able to appreciate not only their friends and family and anyone that did them a favor. They'll never be able to even understand even 1% of the good that Hashem gives them every single moment that they're alive. And they'll simply live a life no different than the rest of the animals in the field that live for instinct, that do whatever feels good, whatever makes profits, whatever makes them feel popular, whatever is going to get the nicest reviews on the internet. The goal is to not be animals. The goal is to be a Adam Kadosh, a holy person. Now we can't all get there in one lecture or even two. But the Chavot HaLevavot is at least giving us some directions. Let's understand where we stand and what parts of our path we need to start fixing. Because saying thank you to Hashem is not enough. The goal is to live by emulating Hashem in our actions. He is good, so you be good. He is generous, so you be generous. And everything that you see that Hashem does, that's what we have to emulate. And remove ourselves as far as possible from everything that's not Hashem. Ungratefulness, arrogance, stinginess, all of these things that unfortunately people don't really realize how much damage it causes between them and other people, and needless to say, between them and Hashem. And Bezrat Hashem, each and every one of us will take these words to heart and literally do what the Chavot HaLevavot is saying. These are the duties of our heart. These are things that each and every single person, no matter where they are in their life, has to inspect their heart in order to see where have they gone wrong. Which part are they doing and which part they're simply lying to themselves about. Which part they're ignoring. Which part is simply non-existent. There's literally a piece of their heart that's missing. That's the goal of Chavot HaLevavot. That is the foundation of the Torah. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we all continue succeeding, digging deeper and deeper into our hearts each week. And Be'ezrat Hashem, fixing as much of it as we possibly can. So one day, we can at least go up to Hashem and tell Him, it wasn't perfect, but at least it was work in progress, because we tried our best. Thank you very much for learning with me. Hashem bless each and every one of us to succeed in fulfilling the duties of our heart. Anyone that wants to support, sponsor next week's lecture, or the rest of the lectures this week, can go to be'ezrathashem.org, BEEZRATHASHEM.org. I'm sure it's going to be in the link below somewhere in the comments. And of course, anyone that wants to donate is more than welcome to for the different things that we have going on. Call to B'chava Atzlacha, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll learn again later this week.